My name is Audrey, and I've been married for just over a year. Despite my efforts to win my mother-in-law's approval, everything seems to have been in vain. The reason for this is simple. One day, my mother-in-law approached me and declared, "I'm giving you back." Giving me back? I asked, confused. I was completely taken aback, but no matter how much I tried to understand, her decision seemed final. She drove me straight to my parents' house, which was only a few minutes away by car. When we arrived, she shouted loudly from the car, "Hey, come on out." Inside the house, I heard a thumping sound before my father appeared at the door. "Oh, can I assist you?" he asked politely. "I'm sorry, but I need to talk to you," my mother-in-law replied curtly. "A talk? Let's have it inside. Please come in," my father said with a welcoming smile. But she shook her head. "We can talk here. We're only here to return your useless daughter," she said bluntly. "Useless daughter?" Father's expression darkened as he turned to her, his gaze sharp. "What do you mean by useless?" he asked, his voice tight. "I mean exactly what I said. Isn't that right?" She continued, expecting him to understand her reasoning. "Don't you get it?" Who earns only $500 a month is defective. A faulty product, she added with an air of finality. Defective? My father's face contorted in anger. I was terrified he would lose control, but there was nothing I could do. My mother-in-law, completely unaware of his growing fury, continued to insult me. "You know, she can't do a thing around the house, and she doesn't even make much money," she accused. "And now you want to return her?" my father asked, his voice trembling with anger. The commotion drew my mother outside. She approached quietly, but my mother-in-law didn't even acknowledge her presence. "That's right," my mother-in-law stated coldly. "I'm returning such a wife, so her parents should take responsibility." "I see. I understand what you're saying," my father replied, looking at my mother. They exchanged a glance and both nodded. "Well then, there's nothing we can do. Let's take responsibility and close the company," my father said. "Yes, we need to accept responsibility and shut it down," my mother agreed firmly. "What? You're going to close the business?" my mother-in-law gasped in shock. "8. What company are you talking about?" my father-in-law interjected, visibly upset. "You're asking us to take responsibility. The company, of course." "What else could it be?" my father replied calmly but sternly. I sighed, watching my father in that state. He was beyond furious, and there was no stopping him when he got like this. Once my father made a promise, he always followed through, no matter how difficult, especially when it came to me. His devotion stemmed from my childhood. I was extremely frail as a child. If anything went wrong, I'd immediately fall ill with a fever, sometimes bedridden for weeks. Because of this, I rarely attended school or played with friends. My mother always stayed by my side during these times, and my father, unable to concentrate on work, would also stay home to care for me. It became a normal occurrence in our family. Perhaps because of my fragility, my parents doted on me even more. Despite the challenges, being weak wasn't all bad. Parents made sure I had plenty to keep me entertained. They bought me books, video games, and other items to distract me during my long hours in bed. My older brother was often jealous of the attention I received, especially when they gave me a laptop that my father no longer needed for work. That second-hand laptop became my world. While it wasn't the most advanced for a child in elementary school, it was magical. I drew pictures, played games, and even explored the internet, discovering a world I never knew existed. Maybe I can create my own world here, I thought. That idea became a cherished memory of my childhood and sparked my passion for computers. I began with simple drawings and eventually moved on to computer graphics, becoming fascinated by the possibilities of 3D design. After graduating high school, I decided to pursue a career as a graphic designer, working from home due to my fragile health. The path was far from easy. I was self-taught, lacked formal training, and had no idea how to find work. I'll have to manage somehow, I thought. Commuting wasn't an option, so I focused on remote work. It required tremendous effort, but over time, I built a network of clients and established myself in the field. Years later, when my work gained recognition, my father approached me with an unexpected proposal. "Would you like to create a commercial for a construction company?" he asked. I was surprised, but I knew his request came from a place of pride. After all, my father owns and operates a local construction company, and he wanted me to shine. He used to build houses on contract, but now remodeling homes has become his primary source of income. The construction company consisted of just 3 employees: my father, my mother, and my brother. Despite its small size, it was a well-known business in the neighborhood. "Are you sure you want me to do this? If it's a job, I should be paid, right?" I asked, wanting to clarify. "I didn't ask you because you're my daughter. I'm asking because I trust your sense of advertising," my father replied. I was touched by his faith in me and thanked him for his encouragement. Being recognized for my skills, rather than family ties, meant everything to me. My design was eventually published as an ad insert in the local newspaper. I also created a website for the construction company and uploaded the ad there. Since we were a local company, we weren't widely known, but neighbors started to notice. Some even approached me to say, "I saw your ad," or "It looks great." Those compliments made me so happy I couldn't stop smiling. The ad also became a poster displayed at the company's entrance and on bulletin boards maintained by the local community association. I can stand on my own feet. I can live independently, I thought, overjoyed by the sense of accomplishment. Meanwhile, my posters began to gain attention in the community. The daughter of the construction company is a designer. She even creates ads for the business. Such rumors began to circulate. As a result, people started approaching me for help with their own projects. One day, an electrician from the town came to see my father. "Your daughter is a designer. She create an ad for us?" he asked. "I'll ask Audrey," my father replied casually. This electrician was already a client of ours. While his business was called the Town Electrician, it was, in reality, an electrical construction company. They handled tasks like installing air conditioners, fiber optic lines, and electrical wiring. Whenever our remodeling projects needed electrical work, we relied on them. "So, Audrey, can you handle this?" my father asked. Recognizing the importance of the partnership, I agreed to help. Later, when my father delivered the finished ad, it exceeded even my expectations. The electrician was thrilled with the outcome. Not long after, someone came to our house to thank me personally. It wasn't the electrician himself, but a young man who introduced himself. "My name is Jeremiah. My father is the electrician," he explained. Jeremiah was his son, a recent college graduate who was helping with the family business. So you plan to take over the business eventually? I asked. Yes, that's the plan, Jeremiah replied. Then we'll likely be friends for a long time, I said. I'd like that, especially with someone as attractive as you, he added with a smile. Me? I was stunned. Having been frail and socially isolated during my school years, I had never been in a relationship. Could he be flirting with me? My face turned red, and I felt like a child as I nervously slumped in my chair. In the end, we exchanged personal contact information. That night, I was so nervous I couldn't sleep. After that, Jeremiah and I kept in touch regularly, sharing daily stories, hobbies, and favorite things. It became a comforting routine. Eventually, we started dating, but our relationship was anything but conventional. My health made it impossible to go on typical dates. We could only meet at the neighborhood park when I felt well enough to go out. Watching movies or traveling together was out of the question. Another challenge was our mismatched schedules. I worked from home and could set my own hours, but Jeremiah's job often required urgent service calls, especially during peak seasons like summer and winter. Despite these challenges, we built a strong bond through daily phone calls and messages. I was used to being confined to bed due to illness, so our unconventional relationship didn't bother me. We nurtured our love in this way, and a few years later got married. After the wedding, I moved in with Jeremiah and his parents. They already knew me well. On my first day, my mother-in-law told me, "Just handle the housework as long as it's not too much for you." "I understand," I replied. My father-in-law was equally kind. "When you have time, could you make some traditional pop-ups for me?" he asked. "I'll take care of it," I said. "Thank you," he replied warmly. I thought I had adjusted well to my new family, but over time, things began to change. My mother-in-law started asking me to take on more responsibilities. "I'm going out of town for a while. Can you watch the store for me?" she asked one day. "Sure, but I have my own work too," I replied hesitantly. "Just stay at the counter. You can work there too, right?" she suggested. "If I can bring my laptop, I'll handle it," I agreed. That arrangement seemed harmless at first, but over time, she started asking me to watch the store more frequently. Then my father-in-law began requesting favors too. "Could you make a website for the store?" he asked. "I'm not an expert," I protested. "Just something simple," he insisted. Despite my reluctance, I ended up creating a website for their electronics business. After that, my in-laws would constantly find new tasks for me. One day, my mother-in-law said, "I'm sorry, but could you handle the cleaning for me?" "What?" "I have work to do too," I retorted. "You're the wife. Can't you at least manage that?" she said firmly. Yes, I reluctantly replied. From that point on, I was responsible for cleaning, cooking, laundry, and even managing the store. My workload kept increasing, leaving me with no time to focus on my own career. I had no choice but to comply. To cut back on my workload as a graphic designer naturally meant a decrease in income. However, being married to Jeremiah, who was covering my living expenses, I wasn't too worried. But that wasn't the real issue. "I think I have a fever today," I said, feeling so drained that I finally succumbed to illness. I approached my mother-in-law and said, "I'm sorry, but I'll need to rest for a while." reaction wasn't what I had hoped for. "I can't believe you'd get a fever over something like this," she said, her tone dripping with disapproval. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "Oh yes, I understand." Just go back to bed, and left the room without another word. Maybe I offended her, I thought regretfully. Still, my body wasn't cooperating, and I had no choice but to lie down. Not long after, Jeremiah came into the room. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes, I'm sorry," I replied. "Don't be too hard on yourself," he said, trying to reassure me. "I know, but your parents," I began hesitantly. I explained to Jeremiah that I felt trapped, unable to refuse the chores forced upon me by my in-laws. Jeremiah, however, looked at me with skepticism. "Why don't you just say no?" he asked bluntly. I tried to explain. "What are you talking about? You're an adult. You should at least express your opinion," he interrupted. Jeremiah didn't understand at all. If this were a professional job, I would have had no trouble refusing, but this was my in-laws' household. Rejecting my mother-in-law's requests could create serious conflicts. Worse, if my father-in-law disapproved, he might even suggest divorce. I was overthinking, but I couldn't shake the fear of causing irreparable damage. That was why I couldn't say no. What hurt even more was Jeremiah's inability or refusal to see my perspective. I felt completely isolated in my in-laws' home. The weight of it all overwhelmed me, and tears began to fall. This kind of thing is normal, I told myself, trying to summon strength. I mustn't lose. Once I recovered from my fever, my mother-in-law wasted no time asking me to run errands again. I reduced my workload as much as possible to accommodate her. This was my way of trying to earn her approval. One day, she approached me with a question. "Audrey, how is your work going?" she asked. "Well, I'm continuing little by little," I replied cautiously. "How much money do you earn now?" She pressed further. That's none of your business, is it?" I replied, my irritation slipping through. "It does matter. ICEs have been going up, and if you could contribute some money for living expenses," she said, smiling slyly. Her words didn't sit right with me. From what I had observed, the electrician business was thriving. King demand for energy-efficient appliances had only increased their workload, and they even received contracts from major electronics retailers. Their income should have been rising, not shrinking, or so I thought. Still, uneasy about her motives, I understated my income. "My income is tight too. With housework, I only make about $500 a month," I said. "Only $500? She exclaimed, incredulous. "Yes, $500 a month isn't so bad if you think of it as a part-time job," I replied calmly. A face flushed with anger. "Only $500? And you don't even do much housework," she snapped. "I think I do a fair amount of housework," I said defensively. Her accusations were baseless. I was the one handling all the cooking, cleaning, laundry, and even managing the store. Despite my efforts, she dismissed them entirely. "Wait a minute. I'll go talk to your father," she said, storming off. Moments later, she returned with my father-in-law. "Come with me," she demanded. "Where?" I asked, confused. "To your parents' house," she replied curtly. "My house?" I asked, stunned. "I'm returning you," she said coldly. I was forcibly taken to my parents' home, where she announced her decision in front of my father. "I'm returning your daughter," she declared. My father remained calm, replying, "I'll close my own company then." My mother-in-law smirked. "You want to close your company? Do you mean the construction company?" she asked. "Yes, there's no other company for me," my father replied with a faint smile. My father-in-law sighed. "You're going to destroy the construction company and jeopardize our electrician business, aren't you?" "If that's the case, then what?" "We have other clients besides you," my father said firmly. "There are plenty of electrician jobs out there." Father-in-law retorted angrily. "Then it's okay for me to take responsibility for my daughter and shut down my construction company, isn't it?" My father asked, staring directly at him. "Suit yourself," my father-in-law snapped. "It's no use trying to force me into a shared downfall," my father-in-law shouted as he left in frustration. Turning to me, my mother-in-law sneered, "You useless wife. Don't bother coming back." I stood there in shock, struggling to process what had just happened. "Is everything all right, Audrey?" my father asked gently. What should I do, Dad?" I asked, feeling lost. He said so many hurtful things. "Wouldn't it be better to get a divorce?" he suggested. "Yeah, I guess so," I replied reluctantly, though my heart still held on to hope. Maybe Jeremiah will come for me, I thought, clinging to the idea that his love would transcend this chaos. But Jeremiah never came. Days turned into weeks, and eventually I received a message from him. It was just 3 words. "Let's get divorced, asterisk." Unwilling to accept it, I kept sending messages, but he never replied. Finally, I received a call from his lawyer. "Jeremiah's parents have persuaded him to divorce you," the lawyer informed me. I was left stunned. In the end, I agreed to the divorce, accepting the alimony and other conditions Jeremiah offered. And just like that, my marriage, barely lasting a year, came to an abrupt end. Around the same time, my father's construction company officially shut its doors. But it didn't disappear entirely. My brother took over the business, keeping its location and name intact, but severing all ties with Jeremiah's family's electrician business. This naturally dealt a heavy blow to Jeremiah's family. While they managed to stay afloat with other clients, their reputation began to crumble, especially as news of my return spread like wildfire around town. Gradually, people in the community started avoiding Jeremiah's family, turning instead to the electrician company my brother had partnered with. The shift in loyalty continued to grow, and eventually, rumors surfaced that Jeremiah's business was on the brink of collapse. "This will teach him a lesson," my father remarked one day with a satisfied grin. My mother and I couldn't help but agree. But life is unpredictable, and soon everything changed. It was the summer of the following year. I was working in my brother's construction company office when we received a phone call. "Excuse me, but the air conditioner seems to have stopped working," said a client whose house my brother had remodeled. When my brother went to investigate, he discovered that the outdoor unit of the air conditioner had been deliberately damaged. "That's awful, even for a prank," he muttered, clearly disturbed. He discussed the matter with our family and promptly reported it to the police. He also contacted his electrician partner to replace the air conditioner. But the situation escalated. This wasn't an isolated incident. It happened again and again. My brother's construction company couldn't handle the surge of cases alone. Reluctantly, some affected clients turned to Jeremiah's family for assistance. We're receiving an increasing number of similar requests, and we'll need to charge a premium for repairs, my ex-father-in-law declared smugly. Is that acceptable to you? He asked a desperate client. The demand is growing, so the price must reflect that, he added, justifying the inflated fees. I was livid. Exploiting people's distress for profit was appalling. But I was no longer connected to them, so there was nothing I could do. I tried to let it go. My brother, however, refused to stand by. I'll find the culprit, he declared, enlisting the help of several clients. Curious but skeptical, I asked what he planned to do. His solution was surprisingly simple. He lent out intercoms to the affected clients, free of charge. Why intercoms? I asked, puzzled. Modern intercoms have video recording capabilities. Some even have motion sensors, so they can double as security cameras, he explained. I doubt it will work, I said, unconvinced. But to my surprise, within 3 days, the culprits were caught. And it wasn't just anyone. It was Jeremiah's parents. They had been sneaking into homes at night and sabotaging air conditioners to create repair work for themselves. When questioned by the police, they confessed, admitting it was out of desperation after losing so many clients. The situation reminded me of the phrase mutual collapse. My father's decision to leave the construction business had destabilized Jeremiah's family's livelihood. Perhaps my ex-father-in-law had anticipated this when he first mentioned the term. Regardless, the arrest of Jeremiah's parents marked the end of their family's electrician business. Not long after, I heard that Jeremiah had started working at a demolition site to repay the damages caused by his parents. One of the electricians who works with my brother said he saw him there. I was told, but I didn't care. I felt a twinge of sympathy, but I had no desire to involve myself in their lives again. Now I am content. I work as a graphic designer and help manage the store at my brother's construction company. I enjoy the flexibility to work at my own pace, and best of all, I'm free of overbearing in-laws. There is one minor issue though. My father, now retired, often hovers around asking, "Are you tired? Are you okay?" He's constantly checking in, which can be a bit much. If you're so bored, why did you get a job? It's cooler to have a working dad, I teased one day. To my surprise, my father took my words to heart and started working again at my brother's construction company. It's clear my father loves me deeply, and I love him just as much. In the end, we're even.